Hi everyone, welcome back to another video in the Web Security Academy series. In today's video, we'll be covering lab number 3 in the DOM-based vulnerabilities module titled DOM XSS using web messages and JSON.parse. If you do not have an account on the Web Security Academy, you can get one by visiting the URL portsfigure.net/websecurity and clicking on the sign up button. I already have an account and I am logged in, so to access the exercise, I'm going to click on Academy. Select all labs, do a search on DOM-based vulnerabilities, and select lab number 3 titled DOM XSS using web messages and JSON.parse. Alright, let's get started. This lab uses web messaging and parses the message as JSON. To solve the lab, construct an HTML page on the exploit server that exploits this vulnerability and calls the print function. So our target goal over here is to exploit the DOM-based XSS vulnerability and call the print function in the victim's browser. Alright, let's access the lab. Now notice over here, this is the built-in browser in Burp, and so all my requests are already being passed in my Burp proxy. Alright, as usual, the first thing that we do when it comes to DOM-based vulnerabilities is just view the page source to see if there's any insecure JavaScript that is introducing these types of vulnerabilities. So I'll do that first for the home page. Let's right-click, view page source, and right away I could see there's a bunch of custom JavaScript that is in the application. So you could see over here, there is the add event listener function that takes in a message, and then when it receives that message, it fires up an event, and the event that it fires up is this entire thing over here. So let's see what this function does. It looks like it creates an iframe element, and then it creates Acme player in the iframe element, and then it takes in the input of the message and it parses it as JSON data. And if there's any errors, it'll return. Otherwise, it checks the type of the data, and if it's of type page load, it'll execute this. If it's of type load channel, it'll execute this, and then if it's of type player height changed, it'll execute this. Now, I don't care about this because it only scrolls something, and then I also don't care about this because it just sets the width and the height. But this over here looks like it sets the URL of the application. So it looks like over here, source of the Acme player event is set using the URL property of the message that we can send to the application. So right away, I could see that it takes an input from the client side, which is our message over here, and then it uses it in order to set the source attribute for an element in the application without filtering or doing any form of encoding or anything like that for the input. So I'm seeing that this is vulnerable to DOM-based XSS. So let's see how we could exploit this. We'll start off by using an iframe to load the application. So we'll say iframe src is equal to the URL of the application. And we'll close it off over here. Let's take the URL. And then what we want to do over here is send a message to the application that invokes this case right over here and then changes the source attribute of the Acme player. So we're going to say onload is equal to, and we'll say this dot content window dot post message, which essentially sends a message to the application so that it could trigger the event over here. So this takes in two inputs or two parameters. The first one is the message that we want to send, and then the second one is where we want to send the message. So first of all, over here for the message that we want to send, we'll add it in a bit, and where we want to send it, we'll just say star, which means that we don't really care where we send it. You could send it anywhere, and then we'll close it off right over here. All right, this looks good. Now for the message that we want to send, let's use double quotes because we're already using single quotes right over here. So before we type up our exploit, we know that it needs to satisfy a few conditions. The first one is it needs to be in the format of JSON. And then the second one is it has to be of type load channel. So what we're going to do is say type is equal to load channel, and these all need to be in double quotes, and then we need to escape the double quotes. So we'll do that. So backslash, backslash, and then backslash again over here, and backslash over here. So we're saying the type is load channel, and then the URL is JavaScript, call the print function. And that's essentially it. So let's escape our double quotes again. So essentially over here, all we're doing is we're setting the type to be load channel so that it enters this case over here. And then we're setting this source to the JavaScript that calls the print function. So let's copy this, go to the exploit server. Hopefully we don't have any errors in it. Paste it in here and just view it in our own browser and see if it's loading properly. So far, so good. And here we go. We get presented with the print function, which means it's working as intended. Let's cancel this. Go back over here to the exploit server and then deliver the exploit to the victim user. And here we go. We get the congratulations, you solved the lab message. All right, so we successfully completed the exercise by exploiting the DOM-based XSS vulnerability. In the next lab, we'll look at another case of a DOM-based vulnerability.